Hello and welcome to another Cello Circle. I am here right after my talk with Jordan Hamilton. So we just got finished talking. I didn't know Jordan before, but I knew from mutual friends and from his Instagram, which is amazing, that we would have a great talk, which we did. I came into the conversation wanting to talk to Jordan about the role of classical music and the role of classical music pedagogy and the role of classical music repertoire in terms of a cello curriculum and how much of that he felt was necessary. And I also just wanted to bounce a bunch of ideas off of him and hear what he had to say. The delay was real, so it was a little awkward sometimes. I felt like I was interrupting him and I felt like I couldn't let him finish. But I hope that you enjoy the talk. It was really inspiring for me in many ways to talk with him about these things. So enjoy. Amazing, right? No, he's incredible, but I'm going to still keep on trying with you because I think what you're doing is just so great, and that you're
I appreciate that.
even interested in teaching is pretty amazing too.
Yeah. Yeah, I do I like that because well, I guess I'm just addicted to it a little bit cuz and also it's like fulfilling something for me because I had a great teacher, elementary school teacher who kind of passed on a lot of students went into music from her era
Oh,
and she
really?
passed away like when we were in 6th grade and they all, continued doing it for up to a point, a lot of them kind of died off, but it was like until college, like you
Wow.
know how hard that is, you know what I'm saying? Without like once you students leave lessons, like a lot of them don't continue playing. And I was like
Exactly.
very the older I get, the more and more I'm like, yo, that was an anomaly that
Right.
she kind of instilled all of that in us. So I'm like,
Yeah. Who
I
was
gotta
your
pay that
teacher?
forward. It was her name was Leslie Thomas in
Okay.
Maryland.
Okay. Oh,
So
in Maryland.
she
She
was
grew
like
up
a
in
school
Maryland.
teacher.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
she was a school teacher, and so yeah, she would she would teach us in orchestra and stuff, but she would have like group lessons at the beginning of like before school started,
Right.
after school started.
Yeah.
So
So, did you grow
yeah,
up playing classical cello, like playing in school and playing like that kind of stuff?
yeah,
And then when did you like
yeah. I
branch
went
off
through
and do
the
your own thing that you're doing now? Like when did that start?
like like 4 years ago.
That's it?
Yeah.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah, yo.
Get out.
Yeah, I mean maybe it's more than 4 years. Wait, I graduated in so no, this is a lie. Um it was gradual, like it wasn't like a defining
Oh,
moment,
it
right?
never
But
is,
4 years
right?
ago, I was official. Well, okay. Also, there's 2 years of pandemic, so I
Of
always
course.
have to. Okay, so when I the story, so like in undergrad, I went to undergrad at BW, and so I was mainly just doing class. Like I was trying to be in an orchestra through that whole time. I
Okay.
was my golden plan was to go back to Maryland, audition for the National Symphony Orchestra, and live in DC for the rest of my life.
Wow.
But then when I was at BW, I was like, I really don't think because I'm away from home, and the only thing I have there is that music, and I didn't feel like I was expressing myself genuinely through
Right.
just the music, even though I love it. It was like it's just a small piece of it. Like, cause when I left home, I no longer heard all the music that I would listen to,
Right.
half the day that would make the classical music, okay, this is cool, this is just a part of the wide variety. But then it became everything, and I was like, oh, this is no longer satisfying my need to like express myself or ability to express myself fully across
Right.
the spectrum. So I was like, man, maybe Jordan, you can't like just play an orchestra because you get stories from orchestra um, people, and they're telling you about all the horror stories. And I heard plenty of them because I was like not interning, but I was in this youth fellowship program with the NSO.
Oh, I see.
So I would go to all their rehearsals like once a month or like twice a
Oh,
month,
oh,
and
cool.
I would be taking lessons from them, and they would be giving us we do master classes, and we would like ask questions to all the soloists that came through or all the orchestra members, and they would always be letting us know like the real, and I would be like, oh my gosh, why are y'all so miserable? But then the older that I got, I was like, oh, it's because it's like a desk job. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right,
they don't
right.
have access to express themselves, and
They don't
which
have
is
full
fine. Like I
control
I love
of what they're
right,
doing.
right. And they tried to let us know it's like, well, just find something that you can do. This is great, but like find something that you can those little moments that you can express yourself. So I've
Right.
always had that in the back of my mind.
That's cool.
And so um so when I went to BW, I was like, oh man, maybe
Is
you
BW,
can't
is that
you got
Baldwin
to think about
Wallace?
other things. Yeah, that's
I
it.
see.
Yeah. Yeah. And I so then I was like, okay, grad school. So I just don't go. So I auditioned for grad schools, and I was like, okay, I'm just not gonna go. You know what I'm saying? Got accepted to a few of them. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna go. But I'll go home and just figure out what I want to do musically, like how I want to write my music. And then this opportunity came along where I didn't have to live in my parents' house, and I decided to go up and live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, doing a performance diploma. So what I
Oh,
was telling him was like, I'm not really going to grad school because I don't want to go through that classical path.
right.
And Bruce Uchimore, which is at Western, he was like, well, you can come and like you can play with the orchestra and just do whatever you want, you know, and
Oh,
don't
cool.
let me. I don't. We won't interfere with that. But you know, we just need you for the orchestra and a few ensembles, and then you're free to do whatever you want. I was like,
Oh,
okay,
that's a good
all right, that
deal.
sounds fine. Right, that sounds fine. So then I decided to come to Kalamazoo. So that was kind of when I was starting. That was like in 2014. I want to make
Oh,
sure to be like,
you've
okay,
been
let me
here a lot
figure out.
longer than I thought. I didn't know
Yeah,
you were
man.
here. Okay, all right. That kind of puts things
Yeah,
into perspective.
but for a lot of that time, I was in grad school head deep. So because I did the performance diploma the 1 year, but then I took a year off, and I was doing some personal studies, and then I went to back to grad school for 2 years.
I see.
And so I hadn't been performing out until three, no, maybe 6 years ago was when I did my first performance. And then
Of things
um
that are non-traditional classical music.
yeah,
Okay.
of things that are original. Yeah.
Oh, I see. So you actually perform then. So you've been doing it enough to have something to perform.
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, I have a lot.
Well, that
Yeah.
by now I hope.
I
Yeah.
yeah. So
So
are you
this
talking
is
about at
good.
that point?
So, well, what I really wanted to talk to you was, I you know I feel like I'm a good teacher. Like I can take anyone and help them get.
Oh, sorry. 1 second.
No problem.
Oh, okay. I have an extension too. I got extension. All right. Cool. Sorry, it's recording
Oh,
session going
nice.
on.
Well, I feel like I can teach people to get to where they're going. Like I feel confident enough as a teacher. So if they know what they want on the cello, I can help them get there. The problem is that
Hmm.
kids are coming to me and they have no idea what the hell they want. All
Yep.
they've been told, and this is kind of like my thing lately, and I feel like I'm in a pandemic like cyclone into deep dark places, and I'm not out of the pandemic mentality yet. I know that, so I feel like I'm still not really sane. But
Right.
I feel like you have a perspective that could help me. So
Okay.
the thing that's happening in my opinion is kids come into their lessons, they and they if I say, what do you want to learn, they're like, I don't care. I was like, well,
Right.
what is it
Yeah.
that you want to do on the cello? I don't know. I just want to be good.
Yeah.
So and I wonder, I have so many thoughts and I just want to know all your thoughts on it, but let me just like go off a little bit.
Okay,
They
please.
they go to school. They're told when to shit. They're told when to pee. They're told when to stand. They're told when to stretch, when to drink water. They're told when to think, when to follow the rules. They're told when they're allowed to not follow rules. Then they go home. They get a snack. They go to soccer, where an adult tells them how to have fun and play soccer. And then they go to cello, where an adult tells them. So, like, my group lessons have turned into, why don't you come? I'm not going to tell you what to do. You could, I have like a thing over here. I roller skate. So, like you could go there, you could roller skate, you could trampoline, you could not take, you could stay on your phone for all I care. I just want you to come somewhere where no one's going to tell you what to do. But still, their parents are bringing them here and I'm present. Like it's not free play. And I wonder in your life specifically how classical music. So I feel like I'm good at teaching classical music. That's like what I do. And I'm actually pretty good at teaching kids to think outside the box if they're wanting to go there, like helping them to like improvise or understand theory enough to improvise or understand like how to just like do things, but they have to know what they want to do. So, but
Right.
under the assumption from before the pandemic, and then the pandemic made me really, really investigate. Always under the assumption that the best foundation is classical music because it teaches good technique that where you're not going to get injured, teaches you the foundations of music theory. Even if you just learn the music, you understand music theory on a just experiential level, and then I can even teach the music theory. Like there's all of that stuff you need to make a good like rock song or to make a good improvisation. You need to understand form to make a good show, like if to put on anything or to play for your friends in your dorm room. You've got to know that arc. So my questions for you are, do you feel like you needed classical music to do that?
Man, this is something I've really been
This is why when I
I
saw
really
you
mull
online, I
this
was like,
over.
oh my gosh, he's a good cellist. I know he must have come from a classical background. Like, I have to talk to this guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm deep into it too. Like, yeah. So I'm all this question over a lot because to me, it's not necessarily classical music or like Western European music that enables like students to progress or people, humans to kind of move through music and like learn so much. It's the pedagogy. It's like the years of
Right?
pedagogy and like understanding how to teach that music.
Right.
That's why it's so good. Like there's so much of a structure and industry behind it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is the thing that makes it the foundation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because it has that rich history of pedagogy.
Right.
But in that pedagogy is more so like set on like you doing exactly what we tell you to do,
Right?
and especially the American pedagogy. And here's the thing too, because I would look this I did this for my my grad thesis. I was and so I'm deep into this. I love thinking about this, but it's like I was trying to figure out like how like what is it? How do you teach cello to the 21st century musician? You know what I'm saying? Because there's great musicians that do not like learn classical music, like and great ones that do learn classical music. Like let's go to like the Black American music with like jazz and stuff. Like a lot of them got access to some classical music in New Orleans because they had like the Creoles doing stuff.
Right.
But outside of that, all of them didn't have access to that education, but they still became good players. Maybe they didn't have like the chops to be able to play like the crazy Mozart or like a crazy trumpet concerto, but we still listen to them. Like John Coltrane, you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
Like he
Absolutely.
has a mastery of his instrument. He didn't go through a classical training, but he did go through some type of rigorous training.
Right.
And I'm wondering because I mean, you can't obviously copy John Coltrane's training and put it in a school system or put it to make it as efficient as the classical music has
Mm-hmm.
done. But like, there's another there's another way. Also, the Suzuki training, right? The Suzuki songs. A lot of them are just folk songs. It
Right.
has nothing to do with the classical music per se. You can substitute the Suzuki
Anything.
song and just put the method in there, and it's the exact same result.
Right. Right. It's true. The repertoire, that's what I'm saying recently, is the repertoire doesn't matter. What matters
Right.
is the mentality, like you said, like you can put any piece, because like why do we have to, I'm like, I have so many thoughts, because we took a bunch of Suzuki teachers to Kenya, and then
Okay.
I'm gonna burn some bridges here. I doubt anyone's gonna watch this, but anyways, we went to Kenya, and we took these little kids in this small school. We taught them to sing Twinkle. Like, it's
Okay.
so wrong.
Yeah.
It's
Which is like
colonial.
so out.
Right? And then we taught them to sing Twinkle. We gave them a bust of Western violins, and we're like, well, not to play Twinkle. And like, why did why?
Fucking no. I fucking know. It's crazy.
Right? So this
It's
is the
so out.
thing. Now when I'm teaching, I have this like concept list that I teach to. So I'm teaching to concepts, which frees me from the repertoire. And so now I feel like I could teach to any repertoire. Like I'm with my kids and we're like looking at two cellos and we're playing like Pirates of the Caribbean and or whatever, like Encanto or like playing we don't talk about Bruno and this kid is he's my first like experiment. He's playing better than any student I've had because he loves music and he knows
Because he
the
loves it.
music.
He's
He didn't have to
interested in it.
listen to the recordings to learn to play the Suzuki
Because
songs.
he's already been listening to
It's
it.
already
He's been
in him.
yeah.
And then creating
Yeah.
something in it. You know, this kid is an anomaly because he's son of two musicians and he already knows how to read music. So it's like a lot of things are just easier. But like I wonder. Oh gosh. So for you, you feel like all that could have been done just without your like what you're doing now and the facility you have. You could have come to it on your own in some other way, just with the pedagogy,
Or
that
yeah,
sound.
I could have been introduced to it at a much younger age. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, you know, that I'm working on basics that can aid me to like whatever I'm able to do. So, you know, I don't instead of playing scales, I don't know if you can hear this, but like instead of playing just up and down the scale, which is not really you can use it for like, you know, um like that's up and down the scale. But you know, if I'm playing like uh I'm trying to imply chords, right? I need to know the scale like I'm out of tune. I'm out of tune. But you know, I need to know and then I need to know how to move from that C major to like E.
Right.
So those basics that I need to know is
Right.
like I need to know inversions of chords. I need to know how to move through the scale horizontally and vertically,
Right.
and then I
Exactly.
need to know like how to go up and down because I'm not gonna go to the top of the scale every time and then go down. I need to be able to. But those are not really skills that we really kind of focus on in classical music because you need to focus on getting a good tone going up, or you need to
Yeah.
focus on being able to execute like a shift really well.
Right.
Those are the main things that you'll be able to use. But in the other styles of music, or to have more freedom, you need to practice scales in much different ways.
Yes.
So you can get introduced to those concepts just a little bit earlier, and then allow students free time to kind of explore whatever they want, like you just said, so that they're not always getting stuff from you. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right.
But they do need a little guidance. They need a guidance because they also don't know what they like. So just putting them through a ringer of a bunch of different songs and be like, all right, you
Yeah,
know,
that's
this
the thing
is
that my students they
whatever you
don't
like.
know what they don't know. Right? So like
Right.
I don't know what they don't know and they I mean I know what they don't know more than they do, but they definitely don't. So they don't know what's out there. But do you feel like when they like well, do you have students? First of all, I don't even know if you have students.
I have a bunch of, I have a few students.
So how do you
Yeah.
approach it with your students?
So there's certain students where I just, you know, I just go through the same training. I try to teach them the same way um, that, you know, any other cello student would do because they have like orchestra lessons, you know what I'm saying? So I have to be kind of rigid and like, okay, you don't have time. And they're only maybe some of them may only be taking 30 minutes. So like we don't have time to get into, you know, a lot of other things. But still I give them the scales like that, like so that they can run through scales in a multiple different ways. Like or I am you know, giving them chances to like improvise without making them think about it. Like, just, I try not to make it a big thing. I
Right.
try to make it like, oh yeah, this is normal for you. Cause last night, yesterday, I had a student recital. Yeah, pretty much all of my students did this, where we did like one girl's playing a swan, and she learned it by ear. Like I had her learn it by ear, and she's playing it, and we made an arrangement. So we're doing it as a duo. And then she, at the end, I said, I changed the chords, and I told her not to hold the G at the end. It's like, just play whatever you want and follow me through the chords. And so now she's figuring out, oh, this is how I use that scale. And so, but still, I'm giving her, the class, oh, you got to shift here, you got to use this
Right.
finger. And so we were going through basics, but then also giving her that ability to kind of, okay, I can use this however I want. And she doesn't hear that in any other recordings.
Right.
So now
It's
she knows,
hers.
oh wait, this is my version. You know what I'm saying?
Cool.
And then I have a beginner student who's doing Twinkle, and I had him do like an intro. So we did an intro and we did an outro, and then
Nice.
we did our slow version, right? Which is basic chord notes, boom boom. And I had him trying to focus. I was like, we're gonna make this slow and expansive. So he's focusing on tone, right? But he doesn't
Right.
know that. He thinks, oh, I'm just playing creative. And I told him to take time. I was just make it loud. So he's focusing on tone and technique. But then you know, he had other because also I have creative students, I guess, and he's like, oh, I want a beat. Let's get let's do a beat, and so then because we did a bunch of different versions, like so we were doing variations and we were just making up variations. So I
Nice.
would pluck one time, or I would hit the cello one time, or I would bow one time. He'd be like, oh, I like this version, or let's mix this and let's mix that. You know what I'm saying? So we did that. And so those are some ways I try to sneak it in there, right?
Right.
But I'm still giving them like the techniques to kind of make them successful cellists. Because like you said, is a big point. Like these instruments can hurt you, where
Right.
to the point where you have to get surgery. Like, and I don't want that.
Right.
And I also want you to be able to play easily, pain free for long periods of time.
Right.
So that's
Oh, that's true. I
it's
need
a
to go
really
watch.
delicate
You're not
balance.
teaching anything online, are you? Everyone's in person, right?
No,
Okay,
not.
that's a good thing.
Yeah, in
It's bad for me,
person.
but it's a good thing.
And then yeah, well, yeah, I don't have anything online.
You're still in
I've been thinking
Kalamazoo,
about. I
right?
always be thinking about doing. Yeah, I'm in Kalamazoo. Yeah, yeah. You can come. You should come work with some of my students. It would be great.
I don't want to work with your students. I want to watch you
And
work with your
then
students.
okay, well, both.
Both. We'll do both.
But then I have another program that I've been working with to kind of. I've been guiding it along, but it's called Orchestra Jambalaya, and we focus on just sort of Black American, like the Black diaspora and their music, like maybe old composers that were in Europe that were Black, like
Oh,
that didn't get
awesome.
any recognition will play those pieces, but also will play pieces from just the Black genre in general across the
Yeah.
world and
So wait, are
transcribe some of
these
that for
kids like
string
young
music.
kids or high schoolers or?
Yeah, yeah. So it's right now we have like elementary through high school,
Oh, that's great.
but I
Okay.
wanted to be a program. Yeah, and we have like different skill level groups. But I wanted to be a program that eventually has like community members in it, so students can learn with adults.
That's
Because
what needs
you
to
probably have
happen.
had adult students.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And you know how it is for them. Like it's a lot already getting to the point where you can take a risk and like learn something new, but then they're not playing with other people, and then they're playing all this music that they were traumatized from as kids in classical music when they don't you know what I'm saying,
It's
and it's
so
like
true.
always bringing like the trauma, and they're
Yes.
like they don't get to the chance to like play fun music in a group with people, but then also seeing younger kids fail at it too,
Right,
you know what
right.
I'm saying? So it's not,
I
and
think
then
some of
the
it's
the,
like
the
also the
younger kids can
trauma of
see,
learning too, that like that some people get traumatized
yeah,
by the process of learning, that they're not allowed to make mistakes without feeling like they're in a safe place or something like that, you know?
right.
So, do you feel
Yeah,
like
so
the
I don't know. It's
classical music is something that these kids should go forward knowing? You know, like your kids that you're teaching, if some of them are like really into improvisation or would you just follow them down that path, or would you give them, like you're saying, you're injecting some improvisation into some of their lessons? For the kid that has no interest in the classical music, would you inject some of that into their lessons too, just to make it more balanced in that way? Or do you feel like it's not necessary, that the technique is enough?
Yeah, I've been making all of my students do classical, but it's more so just for lack of industry in it. You know what I'm saying? Like if I had a pedagogy book full of good like progression of songs what that didn't use any like it's less about the Western European classical tradition and more about like the pedagogy that's there.
Yeah.
Um and like the recordings that are there and the mastery of the examples of mastery of the instrument that are there. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's built so well. It's a great resource. So I like getting them into it for that reason.
Right.
But I don't like I'm not doing it because oh this tradition I think is the one thing like you need to know this tradition. I don't think that I used to die by that sword, but I don't think that this
It's so
tradition
funny.
is any different than other traditions. Um, so it's like yes, it's a great one to learn, but you should also learn other traditions as
Right.
well.
So what made you
Um,
kind of like, you said you used to die by that sword, which I think is such a great phrase, but what gave you the permission to not stand by it in that way?
playing with people outside of classical music.
Oh, you just branched
When
out.
yeah, playing with the other music, cause you went through music school. It's like they make this whole world seem like, oh, these are not musicians, and then I play with them, and I'm like,
They're
hold
so
up, you
good.
know how to do this stuff better than I do. Like, what? This is not how what ground do I have to stand on to say like this tradition prepared me better than and I feel like the whole world like they even had that like misconception like oh you went to school you
Right?
know classical oh that's you're better than I am. I'm like
Like,
you literally are a better musician than I am. Like I'm like it's not a debate,
right.
but they still have that perception. I think that
I think it's true.
that is definitely created by Western dominance, male, like white male culture, which is
Absolutely.
weird. Oh, here's a fun. I don't. This is what I was going to. Sorry. This is good. You geek out on this stuff too.
I'm
I
so geeking
see.
out on this. I'm so
I
loving this right
really
now.
yeah. Yeah, I geek out on this stuff. So the weird thing about because American pedagogy of classical music is what really kind of took it over the edge, as well as Suzuki. But like it was really streamlined and like down to a science, and that's why we have so many great players nowadays. Um, one of the reasons, but it started during that industrial revolution, right? So it's a time where everyone was not trained, not focused on like innovating, but focused on just
Creating.
repeating and getting it
Yeah.
as efficient as fast.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
creating
and
little
that's when
robots that can get it
orchestras,
done.
yep, and orchestras became that thing. And then also back then, they needed more people in orchestras to show that America's sophisticated. Also, there's back in, the day, women would have to learn different musical skills in order to be acceptable or take on a husband. And what they did, they had these schools, the conservatories for women to come and learn how to do music, but they didn't value their musical skills. They just tried to train them to be able to listen to the male conductor. Like you just need to know how to do this fingering, do this, da, 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 shut up and go. And that's the still the pedagogy that we use to train musicians. Whereas even before that period, like the Industrial Revolution period, it was in Europe. Like it was the schools of cello and strings was much more varied. Like you had Piatti, you
Right.
had Boccherini. Like these were virtuosos who had their own style of play, their own fingerings, and they were making their own concertos. And people would go to see those people because like, oh, they're doing something different. This is
Right.
cool. Oh, they're doing something. And then you would follow those schools based upon whichever you liked.
Right.
But then once this period came where it's like industrial revolutionized the uh the way in which we learn how to play the cello or learn how to play the strings so we can get all of these orchestras and get everybody to a high enough play to show that we're sophisticated.
Right.
That is where the creativity died. That's why they brought people like Pablo Casals over here, and they try to do all this other shit. And it's like, well, because you don't have any cellists that are actually creating their own
Their own
style,
thing,
even inside the classical music tradition. It's
right?
different now, I guess, but that's where it came from, and
So, are there
that's not
like,
a.
do you like resources that you go to that you love that I could kind of dive into? Do you have anything?
I have to find them, because I do have them, and
I would love it.
I had to do that for grad school papers, so I know these are good resources. So I have to find it, and I
If you
can
could find
send
it for
them
me,
to
just send
you.
it to me sometime. That would be amazing. I would love that.
It's books, but yes, a bunch of books, like just showing how. Yeah, I'll
So I
look
have
at this
this
right now.
dream of this, and I wonder what you think of it. And it's even as we're talking, it I have crystallized a little bit more of this dream, but this is my thought, and I wonder if you would be the first person to do this with me. I was going to ask every person, people that I respect as players and as creators, to find a tune that they love that's for a beginner that addresses something like
Okay.
crossing strings or the C chord or playing in tune, whatever. And then you create it or you find a resource somewhere like a public domain resource and then
Right.
you make a recording. And I want to make a public website where people can just go download a piece of music, have a great representation of a recording, and if all of us just make one, imagine how many amazing elementary school cello tunes we could have just on a
Yeah.
website somewhere. Like that could
Yeah.
be really amazing. Or it could be like, you're going to play these notes. I'm going to just like play a track for you and
Yeah.
you just play
Yeah.
these notes and just like one 30-second tune, like if all of it one 30-second tune that's made for a beginner, I think that that would be like that could be so amazing. We all just like
Yeah.
give
And
our time and just make it free for everyone in the world to come and just like use it if they want to.
right. And that it's good that it's videos too,
It
because
has to
people
be
can go and
videos
just.
because like for
Yeah.
so many things now people aren't using videos. Like we've got this resource, it's YouTube, and there are tons of crappy recordings out there. Why don't we just make the good ones and then
Mm.
put them into one spot and put them
Right.
on YouTube and put them on a
Right.
website and have the music downloadable? Like we don't need a book. We don't need a book to teach us anymore. If I can make this basement,
Right.
I made this basement from YouTube. Like if I can make this basement from YouTube, people can learn to play the cello. like like
This
there are
is this is big
things,
facts.
you know? So I don't know that I'll have to stay in touch with you as this thing crystallizes.
Please. Yeah. YouTube University is a real thing.
It's a real
It's a real
thing.
thing. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, this
cannot.
is great to
But
talk
yeah.
to you about all this stuff. It's just like making me
Yeah.
think about a whole bunch of stuff. And you're doing it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
You're
I
actually out there
mean,
doing it. You're creating and you've got your own style. And it's great hearing you say that you feel like you're finding your own expression. Because it's like before, what you were trying to do is like, yeah, that's sort of which means you're fitting your square peg into a round hole, and it's like you were seeing something that and like that round hole was amazing. Like classical music is amazing. Both
right.
of
Oh
us are,
yeah.
there's
And I still love it.
undeniably, right?
Still love it.
It doesn't have to
Yeah.
all of us do in order to be musical or be creative or have an or or listen or whatever.
For real though. And I want to find ways that we can get that realization to students younger,
Younger.
because yeah, earlier, because I mean, this idea that, like, cuz in this school music, like classical musicians that go to school, right, those got to be some of the most motivated people out there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
to go through, and a lot of them don't even like it, but they go through it with it anyways because they love music. And I'm like, but they don't know that there's another option out there, because they're in that track of like, go to school, do auditions, or actually do competitions, be a soloist. When you can't be a soloist, go to school, do auditions, be in the orchestra, and then that's it. But the music industry is much bigger. Like the classical music industry is like less than 1% of what is actually out here. So I'm like, why is the dominant culture still classical music? Like, it makes no sense.
Right,
You
right.
can't say it's
Well,
because
it
it's better
makes perfect
players.
sense to me because the people who went through
Yeah.
those programs and don't have and do or don't have jobs playing, or the, well, the people who are teaching think that this is the one way. And it's like when you say
Yes.
we need to get them young, what we need to do is convince the teachers that they can stop teaching. It's okay.
Yeah.
You just stop
Yeah.
teaching and for you
Yeah.
to
But
listen to what the
also,
kids want.
right, the classical music industry, like industrial complex though, is that if you say that classical music is not the only one way, then it immediately makes all their degrees less worthwhile. It makes all their experience less valuable. So it's like they can't admit that because then it will lose all the power.
All that power. And it's
So
about
that's a really
power.
scary thing.
That's okay. So,
Yeah.
like, about power for a second. So, when I look at racism in music, like classical music as an institution, right? Like, there's definitely a lot there that we're not going to even be able to scratch the surface on. But if you talk
Yeah.
about it even from just a power perspective, that going to school in those kind of places, like these conservatories and stuff, it grants you power. Like you buy in to the system so that you can get in your pocket that gives you the power to pass on that knowledge to other people so that you can. And then what we tell ourselves is, I'm empowering kids to take advantage of all this great stuff that I learned in school, right? But imagine all the things that are not unlocked in a child's mind because we
For,
think that what they need to do is learn the one way, right?
for real. For real.
So what have you
Yeah.
found with your
That
students? Like what you cuz you're doing this. Like I'm just starting on this path. I feel like you've been on it for longer than I have. Like you have like
kind
epiphanies with your
not
kids.
um really like because with this jambalaya program, right? I'm really trying to I this because this stuff is not there's not a lot of examples to be done. Also, I'm not like a music educator. Like I'm still very much like a player first, but like I knew I'm very close to my learning experience. So I feel like me getting this idea down now is the best time. So what I've been doing is just experimenting. And so I'm figuring out what I think may work and things that I've seen kind of work. And I've been reviewing this with the team too. Like they really enjoyed like when they were writing their music with each other. And even if all the students weren't at the same level of contributing, like they learned the music so much faster because it was theirs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
right.
I gave them music like the day before the concert, and they still had it. No, I didn't write nothing. I didn't, do not. I just taught it to my ear, and they remembered it. You've had students where you've worked on the music all semester reading it, and they still don't have it memorized. And they've
Exactly.
been practicing, and it's like
Right.
they just don't vibe with it. Like
Right.
that's got to be what it is. But when it's like you have the ownership of it, they're making the parts like they'll remember it. And then so that was one thing that we observed. Another thing that we observed. Let me hold up because I want these were good points.
You're going to take notes on yourself?
Uh, no, I have
Oh, you
notes
have
from
notes. Oh,
reflections.
do you have
Um,
other teachers you teach with in this jambalaya program?
yeah,
Oh, that's
I
awesome.
do.
Man, you guys in
And
Kalamazoo are
so
doing some good stuff. Like there's Kalamazoo Kids in Tune and the orchestra program for the
yeah,
symphony. Like they're doing really good things too at like connecting with the kids at their cultural level.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
good.
Kalamazoo's man. I'm just surprised kept me here so long.
Yeah,
But then
right?
I'd be like, okay, but these are cool. Like to me, the buy-in is like, oh, being able to do something because there's enough like not things not happening for you to make something new. Like
Right.
there's opportunity to make
Right.
something new.
Yeah.
Okay. So, relearning pieces to gain ownership. So, like, you learn a piece one way, right? So, one piece, time they learn it, reading, right? And then you wait like a few months, and then they have to learn it again, or maybe learn a different line in it. So, like, maybe they're
Yeah.
not learning the solo line, but they're learning the piano part now
Right.
by ear. And then, so right, like giving them multiple ways to learn the piece and do
Right.
it over and over again. And then they're like, oh, they started to own the piece. And
Right.
then That was one thing. Oh, remixing songs. So one thing that we could that is easily done, you just find a beat on YouTube
Yeah.
that is in the same key as whatever song that they're learning, and then
Oh my God. Of course, there are beats on
uh,
YouTube. I never even thought
yeah,
that.
yeah, there beats. So you can have a student. Oh, well, you don't know what you like. Okay, go on YouTube, find an instrumental that you like that's in D major.
Yeah.
So they go in and they know how to do this. They're experts. D major instrumental. And they're gonna go through search. They're gonna see 1,000 things they don't like, but there's gonna be one that they like better than the others, and that gives you a cue of like, oh, okay, they like music like this, and it also gives them confidence. But like, oh, I do like this. Then they take melodies from whatever piece they've been working on, whatever, classical or Suzuki piece they've been working on, and then they take little measures here and there and put them
Put them
over
in
the
the
beat.
beats. Oh, that's
And then,
cool.
yeah, and then put things, and then maybe change a melody here and there, change a melody here and there. Naturally, they'll start to be like, well, I wish I could play this. I'm like, well, you can play this. Just write this melody. Okay, now we're going to choose this measure. What do we want to do here? And obviously, we're doing this with the students because they don't have
Right.
always the confidence to kind of accept their ideas, but we're squeezing it out of them. And
Yeah.
then, um, maybe I would like I would pick three measures from it and then make a part and be like, okay, this is how I would do it. And I now that's part of your song. Now what part should we add to this? So it's like
That's
leading by
neat.
example.
Right.
That
Right.
was the thing. Um, Progression of other students sharing. Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's like when you see other like being in a room full of other people and seeing like some person so like eagerly to like share ideas and you see the timid ones, like even then you let the student that's eager to share ideas just go. Because these students are getting encouragement to like kind of okay, it's
Seeing the
okay. I didn't think that
process.
idea was dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's cool. It's good for them not to just see the teachers going through that, but like a student just, oh, they didn't think that was dumb. Oh, and so
Right.
they might add like they don't add an idea this week, but maybe 3 weeks from now they might add like half an idea. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And
Right.
then it gets
Right.
more and more and more. And then socializing, like in those periods, just letting them talk. I
Yes.
found those are oh my gosh, I saw it like because it wouldn't almost be intentionally it wouldn't be intentional, but like when we were closing down and stuff like that, they'd be going playing football, doing whatever,
That's awesome.
juking each other out, and I'm like, this is good
Yeah.
because you want that camaraderie. Like when
Right.
they say bands that hang together, play together, or play well together.
Right.
So it's the same thing. Like orchestras and ensembles are bands. Like they need to know how to hang together, trust each other, so they don't feel uncomfortable
Yeah.
making ideas and taking risks. That was the thing that, and then those basic building block skills like
Yeah. Right.
arpeggios and all that stuff.
Why'd you make
But
this
oh, and
list?
then
Did you have
kids
like
teaching each other.
did you make this list like with
Oh
other
yeah,
people,
we were
other
we
teachers?
yep
That's
yep. These are
cool.
things that they observed
Sorry, I cut you
were
off.
good for
The
them.
delay is real. So you're
No
saying
no no
kids
no no.
teaching each
Yeah,
other?
this yes, yeah, so if one student knows a melody really well, go into the corner, teach them that
Yeah.
melody. You know what I'm saying? Or if one student wrote a melody, like let's say that remix thing, and like they made it, and they need to teach it to all the other students, that because then
Right.
that student also gets a further clarity of that melody, and also it's like you're and then a lot of stuff by ear. That's my favorite thing about the Suzuki stuff is a lot of stuff by ear. And the
Yeah.
other thing, a favorite thing about Suzuki is that you have a parental support around
Yeah.
that student.
Yeah. Right.
And so a lot of students don't have that parental support that they can't afford to have their parent taking off of work to go to lessons. So what
Yes.
makes up for that is having a peer community that is support. But you got to build that peer community to be strong.
Oh, Jordan, I just
So
can't
those
wait
are
to
things that
like
we wrote.
do Suzuki training with you because like this is
Oh
so
yeah,
much it's so similar to Suzuki method stuff, but the difference is like I'm a little disillusioned with Suzuki stuff right now. I mean, I'm a teacher trainer, but at the same time there are problems with any method. Like, there's no one right way. But the problems that I see
right,
with the Suzuki method is it really feels like we're taking kids and putting them into a Suzuki box. And I'm not saying every Suzuki
right,
teacher, I'm not saying that's the method. I'm saying that's what I was doing. I was taking what I thought was a
right,
Suzuki method, trying to take kids and form them into an ideal cellist, which is
right,
it's
right,
that's just not a thing. An ideal cellist is not a thing. We have to discover who we are. Like I and now that my rebirth as a teacher is to be and I would have said this before, but I was talking the talk, not walking the walk, is to be a facilitator for the growth of a musician. And I would say that before,
Mm-hmm.
but it didn't become apparent to me I wasn't doing it until my students, I realized they were silent in group class and they were silent in their lessons.
Oh,
They like didn't have a voice in front of me. Like they didn't feel like they're waiting for me to tell them what to value. And that's a result of my
right,
teaching. Like that's on me. And so what I love
right.
about hearing how you're saying it is that you're really taking your expertise, infusing it into things that they're on fire about, and letting those
Mm-hmm.
sparks lead the way. You're like, there's sparks, and you're just following this trail of sparks, basically, and supporting them because
Right,
they need support. Don't know how to do this stuff sometimes.
right, right. And that is also just a little bit intimidating, especially when you're getting paid to teach. Like you're getting paid to have a result, right? You
Right,
know what I'm saying?
exactly.
But
No, that's so true.
oftentimes, like, so it makes it hard. Like you want to go in there, but I'll have this, and that. And it's like, well, sometimes like you just come in and not do anything today, and you have to be okay with that. But how could you be okay with that? Especially when you want to be a good teacher, like you want them to leave with
Exactly.
something,
Right.
right?
Well, you also don't want to get fired.
And
So
all
there's
of this
that
stuff,
reality. You want to pay your
for
bills,
real,
you know?
right,
Yeah.
right.
There's something
So
like
it's
there's this
weird,
term that is in the educational community about emergence, and that it's a big deal among people who are, people who are researchers and people who are going on a certain line of education, but that we want to harness emergence, that we need to get out of the way enough for something really amazing to emerge out of whatever the students have. And that's exactly what if we have
hmm
the social connection, if we have free time to just be friends and then come together and make music. That's, I mean, how many times have we made amazing moments with our friends, like just in our living rooms, just messing around,
swear,
and then just sit there and just like
swear,
have some nachos and then like go and do it
swear,
again. So,
swear,
oh my gosh,
swear.
Jordan, I can't
So
wait to go visit your
yeah.
program. I want to so see
Yeah,
it now.
yeah, please do. It's still always, it's very much a work in progress. Like this is the first year where we got to have in-person lessons because we started in 2020.
Oh,
And
dang.
so I know, it's crazy. And we were doing like online stuff. It's
Oh, just no.
so this is the first year. So I've been learning a lot because I thought things would work and then they don't. But then they've been showing me what kind of works.
Yeah.
So then yeah, we're figuring it out, and it's like also like with the point that you're saying is like that you said before is like, oh, I was saying I'm in like I am encouraging my students' journey through music, but they weren't actually doing that. It's like, man, all of this is not like how do we? It's not easy for us to do because we grew up in it,
Right.
and it's like how do we? So it's gonna take time, and I think it's gonna take multiple minds to kind of like
Absolutely.
step back and
No,
like
as a person of color, like in the Korean American world, we talk a lot about generational trauma. Like
yeah,
the way that tiger parents are is a result of many generations of oppression and trying to make it and being like seriously hardworking and all of that stuff leads to this one. But in classical music, oh my gosh, the generational trauma. They might not be our relatives, but that generational trauma is
yo,
real. I mean, it's
yeah,
just
for real,
so strong. And to
and we
break
passing
it,
that on
yeah, we're
for
passing it
real.
on. Yeah, to break that cycle takes a lot of there's a lot of inertia in that cycle, and it's easy to
Yes,
give up to the current and just be like, I give up. I'm just gonna get
yes,
swept along in the current. But what you're doing and like what we're talking about, like I think we just have to keep that conversation alive, and just band together. We're a bunch of cowboys now. Those of us kind of like doing this kind of thing from
swear,
classical music. That there are people doing
yes,
it from like the jazz tradition and all like bluegrass and all that stuff, right? And there are people in the music tradition that are trying to like figure out ways to
right,
do this that still honors the child, and still honors the path
yeah,
of learning. And it's hard. It's just really hard.
yeah. We were in the innovative stage like when Piatti was doing it. Then we went into an imitative phase. I think we're entering our innovative phase again. I
I
think
think so
there's
too.
like there's Ben Soli,
Oh my gosh, that you
there's
played with him? I
Stephen
was like,
Brown.
dang, Jordan, that was
I know.
awesome. That
I
was so
lost
cool.
my
Was it
mind.
amazing?
It was more than amazing.
Oh, I'm
It
so
was
happy for
unreal.
you. That's so cool.
Yeah, he was much better. Like in seeing him in person, he's an amazing cellist.
I
Like
didn't know he was in town
unreal.
until your post. I was like, I missed him in Detroit. I missed him. I could have seen him. I could have seen one of these Michigan
He's
games.
so good.
He's so good.
He has to come back. He's coming back to me. I'm gonna make it like Michigan would love Ben Solly. There's no reason he shouldn't be here
Exactly.
once a year when he's
Right.
going on tour. If he's because he doesn't tour that much. But yeah, we're entering an innovative phase of string instruments, and
Yeah.
I think too the performances and the pedagogy are entering innovative phases. So
Yes. Yes, I agree. All right, well, I'm
yeah,
going to let you go, and then we'll just have to continue this talk
please,
sometime. And then
yeah,
when I go to Kalamazoo, I was going to go visit those programs in Kalamazoo. I'm just going to like, I'll have to do it.
okay,
It's probably going to not be until winter because I'm like so booked out. But I'm going to hook up with you and just like talk to you and see what you're
please.
doing
All
once
right,
you're all set
cool.
out there. Thank
Okay,
you
let me know.
so
And then
much for
I
taking
still
the
want to
time to
do.
talk to me.
Oh yeah, I want to do the Suzuki training too. I just so I can learn better.
Yeah,
Because you see it. There's a
absolutely.
lot of stuff that I'm like that worked from Suzuki. Like that was
There
good,
are
but
things
like
that work, and we
so
have to just take the best of all these worlds and put them together and mash it into something great.
yeah. Yeah, and I heard from many sources that you were also like you're a great Suzuki teacher is what I heard, but you
Oh.
also be like, "Woof, fuck this," so
I'm
like we don't need
so
to do any
okay
of
with
this. You
like
know what I'm
trashing
saying?
all of it.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what I want. I don't think I could go to a Suzuki person who's like gung ho just Suzuki, like it saves the world. I'm like, this is not true, but
Yeah, that's
I
not
do want to hear
me.
what you have to say.
That is not me.
So
Absolutely.
I was like, okay, got to get it from
Okay,
you.
we'll both get in the same Zoom room together.
All right, dope.
Okay, all right. Well, you
Cool.
have a
All right,
good
Will.
weekend. I'll check in
Yes.
with you some other time. We'll get together.
Okay. Nice to meet
Okay.
you.
Nice to meet you. All right. See you, Jordan.
See ya.